I'm going to just hit you with this one right away, Harry. Being young, you were 20 when you were diagnosed. What is it like to face your own mortality at that age?
I think it was like the biggest blessing and the curse, right? You're 20, all my friends are going to college or in college, and I was working on music at the time, and I get my first record deal the same day I get diagnosed. So it was a very crazy, the greatest emotion I've ever had, the happiest I've ever been to the most sad and confused I've ever been, all in one day. So it was very a rock to my world. But I think getting diagnosed was the scariest thing, because my biggest fear in life was death, because it's the unknown, and everyone doesn't know. As a kid, I'd be so afraid, and my mom would take me to priests and rabbis and shrinks and everybody, because I would be I'm afraid I'm dying as a 10-year-old kid, because I think the unknown is scary. And I think once I finally embraced the unknown and I became okay with the idea of dying, because I kind of look back at my life at that time, because I'm 20, and I'm I think I lived enough life to go, I guess. And you don't know what else is happening. You just kind of embrace what's going on. And
amazing.
Yeah, so I think that kind of changed my life and made me less afraid of the idea of it.
But how does a brother deal with that? How is that for you, Remington?
You're just in shock. There's no way to explain it, but you just see him go through it, and you just have to be present, and you have to be emotionally available, and you have to be physically available, and try to, lead with some positive energy and optimism. And that's the only approach that I could take, because anything other than that type of love was just fear, and there was no time for that, and there was no space for that. Just what he was going through was phenomenal and insane, and changes your whole world.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that, we've talked about this before, but trying to maintain a sense of personal control is critical. And that doesn't always match up with what other people are telling you you should do.
Totally.
And it tells about the importance, especially for a young person in that scenario.
I think the biggest takeaway I had was, so I was 20, so I beat the pediatric mark, 0 to 19 is pediatric patients. So I'm 20 doing chemo with, 80-year-olds, and they become my mentors, my best friends. And I remember sitting down in one of the chemos, and it was the first chemo actually, and there was this woman next to me. Her name was Bonnie. Awesome. She had pink hair, and she had purple wigs in her bag, and was smoking this weird weed pen or something. And I was just this woman's awesome. And she grabbed my hand, and she's this is gonna suck, and this is gonna be terrible. And she's but just know that cancer doesn't define you. It's not who you are. It's just a part of your life right now. And she's what do you love to do? And I was I'd like to make music. And the first thing she says is, would you die for music? I'm what does that mean? Because I'm dying now. I'm really confused, Bonnie. I'm what are you talking about here? And I think about it, and I'm the only thing I'm thinking about all the day, every day, constantly, is music. So I'm yeah, I guess I would die for music. And then she grabs my hand again, and she's no matter how sick you are, how tired you are, how much pain you're in, always make music a part of your day before cancer. You show up it's a 9 to 5, you show up in school, music, cancer. Then she's you like your friends and family. I'm I love my friends and family. Music, cancer. She's music, friends, family, cancer. And I was okay, well, cancer doesn't seem like a big deal right now. So I'm yeah, I'll just put it on the back burner and just show up when I need to show up. But that changed my life, because I said, okay, let me put music in front of my days. And so I made that a priority. So I'm in the studio, I'm working on new music constantly. Then I go to chemo, I get invited to a concert, and my doctor's you better not go to that concert. And I'm just I'm going to the concert, obviously. Then I'm back in the ICU for 3 weeks or something, because my white cells are down or something. But I'm he's you're so annoying, because we're always getting, every time we're so close to getting better, I'm just fuck it up. But that was very important to me, is to just live, because I didn't know if I was going to get it tomorrow. So I'm if I'm going to live now, I'm going to go full out.
Yeah, and I think, the essence of that is about that, especially that, you're prepared to take risks anyway in life. And,
yeah.
It's something that just has to be honored, I guess, that you make those choices. You both talked about some friends, peeling off and not being able to come see you, or deserting you, and others just being there for you. Was that what's that about? How do you think people reacted, and what do you feel about that?
When I was at the time, I was like, why isn't all my friends pulling up to chemo or being there? There was a couple of friends, but I realized as I got older, I'm like, they just didn't know how to be there to see their best friend die. Like, I get it from that angle, because I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't know how to be there. If you don't know how to be there, you don't want to see that. Like, I fully understand. He got to see it from a different perspective, because he was my primary caretaker. Like, he's taking me to chemo and being around all the situations. And
so how was it?
You try not to be resentful, and you try not to project any of that, because there really isn't any time for that energy and that, those emotions. But the people who do show up, you just show gratitude, and you appreciate them so much more, and you keep inviting them back, and you create space for that. And to see like Harry's friends come to chemo, they had to put us in private rooms because we'd have so many friends there, right? Like, we try to really make it comfortable, or even at the house, we'd have the people in the living room, in the bedrooms, and there would be a ton of us. And even if Harry participated or not, everyone was just there to be there for Harry.
Yeah, I think that was important, because like, learning when I first got diagnosed, everyone's like, make sure we're all like together. All my friends were like, let's come together, the ones that were there. And so that was important. Like, I would just be sleeping most of the day, but all my friends would have dinner at my house, and everyone would get together at my house, and they would come into the room and be like, Harry, we're here. Like, we're here. Just know that we're here. And that was very comforting.
Nice.
And awesome. Yeah.
Well, you made it through cancer, but you obviously met people going through your journey who didn't make it through cancer. What does that feel like, as a survivor now, and reflecting on that, and for you, Eric Remington, and it's like seeing people just not surviving, and then you're getting through it.
Very tough, and that was hard for me when I was first going through treatment, because that's why we moved to a private room, because everyone I got close to was unfortunately passing away, and it kind of was just messing with my mental a lot. But then you kind of find comfort in knowing that they're not in pain anymore, right? You find comfort in like knowing that the world is a wild place, and once you're on that close to death, you kind of have this experience of like your own comfort, and you're okay with leaving. Most people, I think, grieve. It's the hardest part, is grieving someone, but for the person who passed, it's like, I'm fully in like a different light right now, and I'm like, feel no pain, and I feel no worries. And I think that was, it's tough, it's just like, I have no answer for that.
I know. Like, I mean, we did a session with some young people not that long ago, actually, for the End World group, and we were talking about, some of them felt quite guilty about being a survivor.
You have that survivor's guilt. That's where, like, we'll go into, that's why we built the center and did the things, but I'm like, we'll get there. But like, yeah, there is a survivor's guilt, because you're like, why do I get this life? And then there's kind of this underlying, like, I need to design something, or I have to give hope back, and like, I get this second life, and like, that was kind of like this pressure of like, I have this second life, I need to give back to people in my position, and that's what I feel like.
And we'll definitely come to that in a minute, that's for sure. Behind every great person, and I do consider you a great person, Harry, so it's another great person, but I do consider you another great person, Remington, right. And that, because you're it, and I think that, how did you approach supporting Harry through those times, and what was it like for you sometimes, because there's a lot of things you can't control?
Yeah, I think it was just to be available. I think that was my main goal, was just be available for him whenever he needed it, and whether that was physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever he needed at that moment, just to give him access to that. And when it comes to your own life, you compartmentalize. You kind of put yourself on the back burner, and you kind of think of yourself second. And there's a lot of guilt that's involved, like, why him? Why not me? Why can't I be the one going through this? Or if I do anything for myself, I felt guilty doing things for myself. So you kind of have to work through those emotions. And I didn't really work through them, or have the tools to work through them during it. But later in life, I was able to really sort through that and find peace in it. But at the time, you just whatever the tools you have, you go with, and you just try your best. And that's what I did.
And just dwelling on that a bit, from a professional perspective for the people in the room, I mean, did you get anybody trying to help you with that? Because obviously the whole medical focus, and psychological focus is on Harry. Did you feel outside of that, or did you?
You do feel outside of that. There's no one really to talk to. Some of the, during sessions when Harry might be sleeping or out of it, you talk to the specialists or the nurses and just kind of work through the emotions because they have such a good grasp of dealing with it. But I didn't go to any support group or have, access to anyone outside of our current situation to kind of cope and deal with those emotions. So,
because I think, especially you being young too, it's tough for you. And I think that's a message for all of us here, that actually the most important people around and the people that give you support are the people that are closest to you, and they're suffering too. And there's a challenge in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was 24 at the time, so it's, I still, now looking back on it, I was a young kid, but at the time I felt I was ready for anything and kind of take it on headstrong. So, I mean, that to have those systems in place for people to be able to heal in a healthy way, I think is really important.
So let's move on to what you are. I mean, if you haven't heard Harry's music, you want to listen into this guy because he's a beautiful singer-songwriter, and I'd like to know what part that played in your journey, the songwriting and the music. You touched upon it earlier, but how big a deal was that for you, and how did that help you?
I mean, that was the biggest deal, to have hope into something. I remember like halfway through treatments, my doctor came in and like it looked like I was gonna, be cured and, get through it, but it was like, a year away from that. And I remember him sitting down and being like, 'cause I was writing music through each chemo, and through each process of radiation or whatever, I kept just writing things in my notes and having a vision and trying to create an album and a concept. And it just gave me hope during the whole process that like, I don't even remember going through chemo. I just remember making this album that I was working on, which is super important for me to have a passion and something to fight for. But my doctor came in and he was like, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna help a lot of people with your music. You're gonna travel the world. Like, you're going to share your story, and then you're gonna connect with people. And at the time I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But I'm like, how do I even do that? But I'm like, yeah, like, it was very important to like get that inspiration, have somebody to believe in me, to push me, to give me that realization, like, yeah, I can do that.
Good.
And 9 years later, I've seen the world, I've toured the world, I've performed for a lot of people, and like, I've got to live my dream out of something I never thought I could be able to do,
And do you think...
Thank you.
Do you think that cancer and the cancer experience gave you some creativity that maybe you might not have had without the cancer experience?
Yes, the most. That's why I'm like, I always tell kids and people who are going through treatment, I'm like, oh, you just, as unfortunate as it is, you kind of hit this jackpot of a situation of life, because it kind of skyrockets you into like who you want to become quicker, is what I believe. And what my experience was it really saved my life to realize who I am as a person, right? Because I never was confident as a person. I was always insecure. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to be there for others at the time, because I was in the mix of being a teenager and growing up, right? And then at 20, I get skyrocketed to be like, okay, it's time to realize everything and talk to your parents about, like, if you don't wake up the next morning, what does that sound like? What's that conversation like? And like, I grew up really, really quick. Yeah. And I think with that, it saved my life, and it made me become who I wanted. I always had the vision of becoming, and I became that person. And so I think it's awesome.
You're nodding, Remington. Did you observe that?
When you see his metamorphosis as like before going through treatment and after, it's a completely different person in the way he approaches life and like how intentional he is. And even, as a songwriter, his songs change. It wasn't like chasing a hit song anymore. It's like helping other people heal and finding words and hope for other people who might not have that. So I think that he did such an amazing job of, capturing, all the emotions that he had through treatment and kind of the metaphorical experiences that he had that other people can experience through life. You don't have to only be going through treatment or be diagnosed with cancer to feel some of the emotions that he was feeling, highs and lows. And he translated that from those journals that he wrote into songs that he created and sang.
Amazing. Yeah. And I suppose conversely, and a question to both of you as well is, is there anything you grieve for or you miss that you felt that cancer took away from you?
Honestly, no. I think it gave us more than it took away. you know, the people who show up in your life are, you know, they show up in your life during hard times. And I think that you're like, it kind of cut all the fat out of your life, and it just showed like all the things that are truly meaningful. And you have such a good grasp of what actually has meaning in your life and what matters. And I think that I've personally gained since.
Yeah. And it led us to you, you know? Look at us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so, was there any kind of faith or spirituality that was important during that journey?
For me, yeah. Anywhere I could find it, you know? I was just like, give me something. I was just asking anybody. But I was at St. John's right over here, and there's the Self-Realization Center right by the PCH on Sunset, and I would go there before chemos. They have like this little meditation temple that I would just go or walk around this little lake and just sit there and journal. And I think that was like where I found a lot of healing and peace, is just being in peace and like feels like I'm separated from the world in this one little place. So that was awesome.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just, you know, in a situation where you have no control, you just give it up to a higher power, and you just hope that there's something larger at play, kind of guiding it. So that's the approach that I took, was just all the things that I couldn't control is just leave it up to the powers that be.
So let's talk about what you've done since, because you're here for us.
Yes.
But you've started a special charity called I'm Here For You.
Yes. Hey, I'm here for you.
So,
It's
hey, I'm here.
tiny and in this
I'm
little
here for
thing,
you.
you can see it, but it's there.
So tell us about Hey, I'm Here For You and what that's about.
The simplest ways I can put it is I wanted to become someone that I wish I had when I was first going through treatment. Bonnie was amazing, and she made me realize that I should be fighting for my passion, and that should be the lead way of what my treatment should be. You know, and I wanted to do that for younger adults, right? So again, pediatric is 0 to 19, and these, you know, 13 and 19-year-olds get overlooked in that world. And I wanted to create a program and create a charity that focuses on the individual and give them passion and give them hope and help them find their music, is what I like to say, because I think through passion you find purpose, and to give a kid the opportunity to find a passion can lead them to be, you know, a superhero. And so, yeah.
And I think,
Thank you, yes. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, and I know, because I know that this is your philosophy as well, and I know this is just as important, that you want to be there for people that even know they're not going to make it, and find their passion in that time. That is just as important to you, isn't it?
Totally.
And that you want to help young people who maybe, you know, they know that they're going to die, but they still need that sense of passion at that time.
It's very important to feel seen and heard. And like, I can just give a quick example, but, you know, we built a cancer facility at University of Vanderbilt Hospital, Monroe Carroll Center. It's right here. So together we did that. That's my dream that we accomplished. And I brought one of my friends, Jaden Smith, who's, you know, in the celebrity world. And there was a kid who looked up to him in a crazy way. And so I surprised him with Jaden. And we didn't know the kid was terminal, and the mom didn't tell us anything, right? And so they forged a friendship because I introduced them, but I walked away and let them talk. And then me and Jaden are at dinner the next week, and I'm like, who you keep texting at dinner? He's like, oh, that kid you introduced me to from the hospital. I'm like, what? Like, and they built this friendship, and like, I guess they played Fortnite, like online video gaming, and like, they were just like became friends. And I'm like, what is happening? You know, so like, that's really cool. And like, that's the kind of person he is. He doesn't tell anybody anything. He was just doing it. And then I get a call 2 weeks after that from his mom and saying, you know, he unfortunately passed away. And she's like, I just want to call you and say, like, Jaden made his last week the best week of his life. You know, he couldn't stop talking about him. He couldn't stop smiling. He couldn't stop playing the game, you know, and it's like that's the littlest thing of what we're trying to do, is to at least make someone feel seen. Yeah. And like to show like they could be anything, and there is hope if you don't have it. And you give the last couple of, you know, days or weeks, like, do something special, and it doesn't have to be extravagant. Yeah. But just something simple to like feel loved.
Absolutely. And we have a plan, because Remington can answer this one. Teen Cancer America develops these programs in hospitals for adolescents and young adults who, like you, are either 20 and in amongst old people, or maybe 19 or 18 and with little kids and not really finding their place. So we develop those, but we have a plan where we're going to partner. So Harry likes to say we're doing the heavy lifting and you're coming in on the end with all the good stuff.
I say I'm the fun uncle. Like a funkle guy.
You know, so when we approach different charities and nonprofits, Harry's first question is always, can you introduce me to the kids? And you'd be surprised that a lot of people aren't able to do that. They don't have access to teens, or they're layers away. And we asked Simon and Teen Cancer America, can you introduce us to the kids? And they said, next day. Easy, we'll walk you in. And that to us went a long way. And everywhere Harry travels, we just called Simon and said, hey, can we meet the kids? And is Atlanta or New York or Tennessee, wherever we are, he's been able to do that immediately. And that holds a lot of value to us because, for us, it is about the patient experience. It's about helping them meet their human potential. So how do we meet these humans where they're at? And I think that Simon has done such an amazing job with Teen Cancer America and all the big work that he's doing. We want to be a program that attaches to that and adds value and say, okay, introduce us to the kids. And then from there, see what their passions are. And if they haven't explored that or haven't found an avenue, provide resources to be able to do that and a network to be able to do that so that their time during treatment and beyond is meaningful and they have an amazing experience for something that is not so amazing.
Yeah.
Just a little reflection. I just want to, because I think it's an important person in the room for us here. You both, lost your dad at a young age as well, and that must have affected you after all of this. You then lose your dad at a young age. That's tough for both of you. But
yeah.
You gain strength from your dad. How has that worked for you?
I mean, Fool's a wild guy. I only can say the best things about him because he changed our lives and raised us to be close and raised us to be the men that we are. And all you can do is just take what he gave us, and that was a lot of love. And I'm blessed that I got to have that, and led me enough to be crazy enough to build this thing in Nashville with you. His dream was to live in Nashville for some reason and always pushed that upon me. And he's like, Harry, you're going to live in Nashville. I was like, why? What the, we don't know anybody. You don't even go there. What are you talking about? And after he passed, this full circle thing happened. And Simon reached out and was like, hey, do you want to help me build this cancer center in Nashville? And I was like, of course, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, sure. And now I live in Nashville, so I think he had a pretty dope impact on me. And we have the cancer center there up and running, and I think, blessed.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, he really was such a major support in everything that we did. There was no idea too big that wasn't achievable or unsupported. He never said you can't do that. It was always okay. Let's do it. Let's find a way. I know a guy, or I know someone who can help you. So for us, it was, it was there was nothing unimaginable that wasn't achievable. Anything we imagined, we feel like we can achieve. So when Harry was going through treatment, the first thing he said is before he even did his first chemo, he was like, I want to open up a hospital. I'm like, okay, well, let's go through the treatment first and let's see how things go. And it's like, no, that's what I'm doing. And then all these years later, we're able to do that with him.
My money's on him doing it for sure.